Drake's new single, What Did I Miss, drops from number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 to number 8. What does it mean? Why is it important? And what should Drake do next? So what does it mean? Drake still has the star power, the fan base to push a record into the top 10 on Billboard without a doubt. He will always be able to chart high. But the question is, how is he going to be able to chart high and continue to be there week after week? How is he going to get to the number 1 spot again and continue to hold the spot for a number of weeks? He has the base, he has the fans who will promo the record, talk about the record, stream the record, but no artist can do it independently. But the label may struggle to get behind him or may not want to put 100% push behind him because of this pending lawsuit. Let's look at an artist like Russ, for example. Russ is an independent artist who has cultivated his fan base through a number of years, through a number of promotional tools, and by really speaking to his audience and getting to hear what they need and what they want. He sells out arenas, he sells albums, he sells singles. But the one thing Russ does not have is a number 1 song. And the only reason I believe that is because he doesn't have the label backing and support. He's a player within the industry, but he doesn't play with the industry the full way. So if you don't really get down with what the industry is telling you to do, it is very hard to see that number 1, and it might be impossible. Now, the songs that are played on the radio are determined typically by a program director. A program director at a radio station is going to take into account 2 things. What are the labels telling them to play, or what are the labels paying them to play in any capacity? And number 2, when a song is played, are users continuing to listen to the station, or are they switching off the station? There's a company called Luminate which analyzes this specific data, which tells stations when you play this Drake song, people are not changing the station. They are tuning in and listening through. But if they are playing a song that users don't want to hear and they're changing stations, they are less likely to play that because it hurts them in the long run. They need listeners to stay on the station so they can hear advertisements, they can hear music, they can hear about events. And people aren't listening, they will not play the record. Program directors typically have a great relationship with labels and promotional teams, but specifically the department at labels that deal with the radio. It's a symbiotic relationship. Labels deliver the music to the stations and stations play the song because it keeps people's ears there, and it helps the labels out because the songs that they want to go rise up the charts because they're being synced on radio. It works for everyone. But how does this work with Drake? Right now, Drake's relationship is strained with UMG. It's very obvious to us all, and rightfully so. The two are battling it out in court. So while Drake may have typically had that relationship with the label to push his records on the radio, right now he doesn't. And the word that no one wants to talk about is payola. Radio stations can't take money to play certain music without telling the world that they were paid to do so. They have to acknowledge that and present it to the public because these are federal airwaves. We know it exists. We know it's been going on since the beginning of the music industry, but you can't talk about it because it's illegal. So now with Drake, how can they continue to get Drake's music on the radio without using their typical means and the things that they resort to make sure the music gets played? Drake is stuck between a rock and a hard place. The label can't do their job because you're suing them. So how can he get a song to be synced on radio without the label doing what the label does? Drake is going to have to strengthen his relationship with these stations, with these program directors, with these DJs, if he wants to have that number 1 record, and if he wants this record to stay in the top 10 and potentially stay at the number 1 for multiple weeks on end. And the second reason why this is important is to address all the people who say Drake should just go independent. While ideally that is a great thing, it is extremely difficult. Because if a rapper wants to go independent, and let's talk a rapper of Drake's magnitude, really the top of the game, the apex that any rapper has ever been, the label plays an important part because there are so many things that go into being an artist that is number 1 in the world. When you think about touring, you think about logistics, you think about security, you think about finances, you think about promotion, you think about radio, you think about A&Rs. All of these things that the label has in-house, if Drake were to go independent, he would have to source, staff, and maintain these things for years to come. Masters, all of these things that go into being an artist like Drake are not easy to come by. It takes years of experience. It takes a team. It takes people being in sync and dedicated. The label has those things already. So that's why it makes sense to always be with a major once you reach this height, is because it's just easier. They have these things built in. So while I think Drake has made moves to make himself a lot more independent, it does help to be with someone like UMG. It does help to be with the Sony because they can make sure that these things are done seamlessly so that you can be more hands-off and more involved in the art of the music rather than the business of the music. And despite of all these things going on, having the #1 album with Some Sexy Songs for You, having a #2 single with Nokia, having a #2 single with What Did I Miss, I have no doubt that the album Iceman is going to go #1. That's going to happen regardless. It doesn't matter who drops the same week as him. Drake will go #1. But what we have to talk about is how does he get that single to go #1 and to stay? There's a few pieces of advice that I'm going to give him. Why would he listen to me? He doesn't have to. But here's what I would say. My humble opinion. #1, re-strengthen your relationships with radio. Program directors all across the country, get a promotional team together and make sure that those records get played by any means necessary. While you look at Hot 97, there are some people who have gone against Drake historically and have been talking bad about him the past 2 years. He does have some advocates over there at Hot 97. Funk Flex backed him. Funk Flex will always play a Drake record. You got to rely on that relationship. If you look at Power 105, we know how Charlemagne feels about Drake, but there are advocates at Power 105 for Drake, right? There are directors over there who have shouted him out and have backed him. Even if you look at DJ Envy, Envy doesn't say too much, but Envy backs Drake as well. There are ways to get those songs synced on the radio, and those are just two small examples in the bigger market like New York City, but all across the country and nationally syndicated radio, you have to strengthen those relationships. The next thing he has to do is continue to rock out with the fans and his core basin audience. While, Iceman episode 1 was a surprise drop when we got What Did I Miss, but he needs to have those pre-save links. He needs to roll out the single days in advance so that people know, so that they can make sure they are ready to stream this music, to buy this music and support him. If you look at Nicki Minaj, for example, the way that the Barbs go to battle is second to none. Drake has that same audience, with the Owls or whatever, OVO, however the people want to call themselves, entitle themselves. They are there to back him 100%, but he has to really, really, really tap into them and connect with them so that they can support the music the best way possible to make sure that those songs go #1 and that those songs stick. Now, all of this isn't indicative of the quality of the music. It's indicative of the music industry. Drake is a part of the game. But no player can defeat the game itself. No player can defeat a league. You have to play along at some capacity to get to the top. You have to play along at some capacity to stay at the top. You can't be the #1 guy without the support of the industry that you play within. The relationship is strained right now, but you better believe there are executives, there are owners, and there are people who are dying to do business with Drake. He has the leverage here. With this lawsuit, he's holding the cards at the moment. But what is the best way to play the cards? This is going to unfold in the next year, and we're going to see how will Iceman do? How will it perform? What future projects and tours will happen after it? And what's going to be the resolvement of this lawsuit? Who will win? Will it settle? And what will it expose about the industry itself?